Fantastic. So let's get started for the January 10th, 2023, 6:30 meeting of the Sewer Commission. Anybody here for the public forum? Hearing none. Cam, minutes, warrants, and abatements, please.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for review of the December 13th meeting.
Any discussion?
Is there a second?
I guess I got a question. I wasn't here. Was Peter Lamb at the meeting last time? Because he says that he was present, but all the motions, it looked like he abstained from. So I was just curious what was up with that.
I was there.
No,
You were. Okay.
Peter was there. I'm not sure if we had a bad connection at that meeting. He could hear us, but I couldn't hear him when we were taking the votes.
Okay, that's fine. I was the only
But he
question I
was
had.
there. Yep.
Anybody else have any questions on that? Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Peter, roll call vote.
All right, Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. McLam,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
All right.
All right, and moving on, I'd also like to make a motion to approve the warrants and abatements for review totaling $33,000 to $33,231.68.
Any discussion on those warrants?
Is
All
there,
right.
is there a
Roll call.
second?
I'll second.
Roll call
Mr.
vote, Peter.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. McLam,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye. Moving on, 6:35 Veolia monthly operating report.
All right, I'll be covering the month of November 2022. The plant was staffed by myself, Dylan Moriarty, and Grant Krisiak. For health and safety, Veolia's monthly inspection was completed on November 6th. Training, I participated in corporate safety training on minimum PPE requirements. The staff did cold stress, winter safety, and we also toured Upper Blackstone just to see how different wastewater plants operate, the equipment they use, and what a really large facility looks like. It was pretty interesting, and we were surprised by the equipment they were using. Compliance for the month of November, there were no exceedances to report. The DMR was completed and entered into the CDX on December 15th. Operations and maintenance activities. Comag Train 1, the plumbing started leaking. After investigating, we isolated the leak where the leak was coming from. It was a small hole in the sludge suction pipe. And while we had it isolated, we replaced similar age pipes in the area. It included 2 isolation valves and several flanges. The EQ tanks had some problems with their pumps. EQ tank 2, pump A, and EQ tank 3, pump B, were both found to have wiring issues. The wiring's in an underground pipe, and they were bad. While working on figuring out what was wrong with the pumps, we discovered that EQ tank 1 had a bad level transducer. It wasn't changing like it should have. The tank actually filled up and almost overflowed, and the level transducer just kept reading that it was perfectly fine. EQ tank 2, the level transducer broke, and that was during the removal and installation of the pumps. EQ tank 2, both pumps received oil changes on this day, and it was pretty chaotic. We put the pumps in and took them back out probably 6-7 times throughout the day, and that's how that transducer got broke. It just got underneath one of the pumps and it broke the wire. Let's see, clarifier number 1, the drain plugged up again. We had Slims come in and they suck out the clarifier and truck it down and dump it back into the head of the plant. It takes pretty much a whole day for them to suck it out. It's a lot of work. When they were done, we put it back online and we could get the RAS up to about 30 gallons a minute. not where it needs to be, but it's all we could get. While the piping was apart, we took a look at the sludge pumps and checked them for wear. They are functioning, but there's significant wear inside the pumps. So while the Hayes engineer was here recently, we had them look into alternatives for that area, and they'll be sending us a quote in the future for those. The Headworks grit classifier stopped working. The motor that's underneath the influent channel was removed. We found it was seized up, and we ordered a replacement motor for that. 20 days after we cleared the drain in clarifier number 1, it plugged up again. Slims came in, we took the piping in the building apart, and they sucked a whole tractor trailer load of heavy sludge through the piping. And they were able to drop that off in Southbridge, so we didn't have to keep it in our plant and deal with it. So that was nice of Southbridge to help us out. When they were all done, we got the RAS working a little better. We got up to 40 gallons a minute. Still not where we would like to see it, but it was better. They did some soil borings on the property, and those are for the Headworks upgrades that we're looking at. The new forklift was delivered. The team put a coat of wax on it to protect it because it is stored in a building full of water. We replaced the sample tap in the Comag influent line, and the guys got to see how to replace a valve under working conditions. And that just means that there was pressure behind it. And I showed them how to change them without making a mess. We turned the UV off for the season, and we'll be ordering pots for that soon to get it ready for the upcoming season. Pump station activities. The weekly rounds were completed at every pump station. We tested floats, ran generators as needed, and checked the dialers. Glen Echo Shores pump station started alarming out once a day for high level. It was really strange. It would do it at night. We found that the station was pumping down based on only the alarm flow, and the station only runs about once a day. So it was really hard to figure it out. The on and lag floats were both bad. LaFleur Electric came in and straightened that out for us. Several days after fixing the float issue, we had a seal failure on one of the pumps. So the team went out, changed the oil. One of them had water in it, and that doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. They can leak in through O-rings and stuff. So they put some clean mineral oil in it, and we'll see what comes of it. Vine Street, we had a odor complaint, so we replaced the charcoal in the odor scrubber, and we haven't heard any issues since then. 6 West, we cleaned the pumps 3 times in November. That is really excessive, and it's time to look at replacing those pumps. When we got to clean them every week to keep them running, it's way above and beyond what should be happening there. This is a big job to take these apart and clean them out. The sludge for the month, we hauled 6 loads to Cranston. Grinder pump calls. We went to 73 Lakeview a couple of times during the month. Once we found the breaker tripped and the switch was in the hand position. Another time we went, we noticed there was a lot of grease around the floats. The breaker was also tripped and it was in the hand position. So I'm not sure who's opening the panel and putting it in hand, but we did find it that way twice. We had another grinder pump call at 3 Stephen Drive. It was an old system, and we scheduled Ed Laporte to upgrade it. That concludes the MOR for November of 2022. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Vinny, what's that mean? Breaker was stripped, switch was in hand. That means somebody switched to switch themselves?
Yeah, so inside of the panels, there's an automatic setting, a hand setting, and an off setting. And somebody was taught at some point in time to go in there and put it in hand when the float sticks. So somebody's going in there and putting it in hand and just leaving it there. It's not how they're made to run.
Okay.
So So now that we're done with the MOR, we also sent an attachment out with 6 West pump replacement quotes. So
That's on our agenda tonight.
it is.
Yeah.
So we refer to the station as 6 West. It's the westbound side of the Mass Pike. The pumps in there, we got to work on them weekly. The mechanical seals are bad in both pumps. We actually plugged the holes on them last week. The wear rings are worn out. It's a lot of money to rebuild these pumps. We just did a mechanical seal in one pump and it was over $5,000 just for a seal. These need a lot more than a seal. They need seals, impellers, wear rings. So I got some quotes from 2 different pump manufacturers. The original equipment is supplied by Hayes Pump, and they quoted us $23,459.10 per pump. Those would be exact replacements. We would take it out and we would put a new one in. Now, these stations were built in the 90s. So in my opinion, when we replace these pumps, we should also replace the isolation valves at the same time. The isolation valves, they're about $3,000 for all 4 of them. We should also replace the check valves. We have them here, so there's no extra cost for that. The second pump I was looking at, it's a flight pump, and the ones I had spec'd out are known as solids handling pumps. And it's what we put in the EQ tanks a few years ago. And basically you can feed baby wipes to these things all day long and they'll just push them right through. They quoted us $32,000 for the 2 pumps. And down below I have the totals for you. The whole Hayes project would be $63,451. And the complete flight project would be $54,000. The flight ones are a little more hands-on, having them installed. I had Gabe from Slims go out there and look at the job, and he said it would be roughly $10,000 to $15,000 to install the flight pumps. The Hayes pumps would be a little bit easier of an installation, but it would still be a couple of days worth of work, somewhere around $6,000 to $10,000. No matter what pumps we choose, if you choose, we'll need an electrician to wire them because this is 480 volts. It's nothing to mess around with. So I put an estimate for the electrician in there, and there's a possibility of needing new electrical equipment when we do the project, so I put money in there. So I'd like you guys to consider this. I mean, it's time. The station was built in '96. They're well worn.
Vinny, I have a question for you.
Sure.
If we were to go with one of these options right here,
Yep.
do you think this is a spot that we'd want to put one of those baby wipe munchers or whatever you talk about?
So if we go with
If we're
the
taking it
flight,
all apart?
what you're talking about is Muffin Monster. It chews up the baby wipes
Right.
and
Yep.
anything else that goes through it. I didn't get a price on one of them, to be honest with you, because I looked straight at the flight pumps, and the flight pumps are just made to pass that stuff straight through.
Okay.
So the baby wipes would just go straight through them. There's nowhere for them to get stuck. And we'd screen them out at the plant.
All right.
It would be a big expense to install a Muffin Monster at this site.
Okay. I
As
just didn't know if
Gabe
we were
was out
taking
here,
everything
we did-
apart, if it'd be easy to put in at that time.
Now, while Gabe was out there looking at the pump project, we also talked about it, but I didn't get no prices on it just because we would have to excavate and dig a trench and
Okay.
yeah, pour stuff in. It'd be a project.
Okay. Peter, what's your thoughts?
Well, like Vinny said, these have been there since '96. I haven't found any records. I don't think Vinny's found any records that these pumps have been replaced, so it's definitely time to do so. As Vinny mentioned, we do have these flight pumps or similar flight pumps in the EQ tanks that are working fairly well. So I think it would be a good thing to do and something that is needed. So I'd recommend you approve option 1 and that we fund that through our annual O&M account.
The flight pumps, I think it's option 2, Peter.
Yes, yep, fight option 2.
Any other discussion or questions, guys?
I have none.
I think this is definitely something that needs to be done also. So I guess with that being said, I think I'm looking for a motion.
Right. In that case, I'll make a motion to approve option 2 for the flight pumps.
Any more discussion on that? How about a roll call vote, Peter?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
roll call vote, Mr. McLam,
Aye.
Coleman,
Aye.
and Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
Great.
All right, moving on. Surplus equipment, Peter.
Yes, so we had thank you, Vinny. Thanks for putting that stuff together.
Yeah, thank you, Vinny.
Yeah, thank you guys for approving that. That'll make my life nice.
Perfect.
Glad to hear it.
That's what we're here to do.
All right, so the surplus equipment, we actually had a successful auction using the Municipid website. I want to thank Karen, the Selectman's office, for her help with listing the equipment on the site. So we did three packs of the chemical totes, and the 3 winning bids were $110, $161, and $190. The winning bid for the forklift was $5,700. And when I talked to the salesperson from the company that we bought the forklift from, his value for a trade-in was about $1,000. So this definitely worked out better than just trading it in. And the winning bid for the generator was $5,200. So that's been sitting there taking up a lot of real estate in the treatment plant for probably 10 years now. So I think Vinny's happy to see that gone and out of the way.
Perfect. Thanks for getting that done, Peter, and thanks to
Worked out well.
Karen for helping us out. Let's see, what's the next thing on the agenda here? The DEP Gap 3 Grant Award.
Yeah, so as part of the Mass Saves and as part of what we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years with National Grid and the Mass Saves people, as far as electricity savings projects throughout the treatment plant, we did lighting, we did some heating for the offices, and when they were here doing an assessment of the treatment plant, we were looking and talking with Vinny, we were looking at a way to upgrade our dehumidification system throughout the treatment plant in the summer months. Because there's just a bunch of cool water that sits in there when it's really humid outside. In July and August, it gets very humid in there. The large dehumidifiers that are hanging from the ceiling, my understanding, are made for kind of big, like Olympic pool area type venues, and they don't necessarily work. One, they're not working, and they don't work well with what we have. So recent commissions have ordered some handheld push around dehumidifiers to try and keep that humidity out, which doesn't work well. So as they looked at that, they mentioned a geothermal process where instead of using like an air source heat pump to heat it in the wintertime, they can take the treated water that we're about to discharge that stays relatively around 55, 60 degrees and use that for a geothermal heating and cooling process for the treatment plant. So I think it's going to be a fairly new project for a lot of people, because I'm not sure many treatment plants or any type of commercial buildings use this type of process to heat and cool or heat and dehumidify. So this is going to be new to a lot of people. And then talking to the people from National Grid, they're kind of excited about it as well, because they haven't really seen it before. So National Grid hired a company called CHA to come in and look at what we have going on in the treatment plant. And they came up with, in I guess theoretically, this geothermal process and the cost associated with it to install of $127,000. They broke it down, and with funding from Mass Saves of $67,500, the town's contribution of the remaining amount of 6,000, I applied for what's called the DEP Gap 3 grant that they had out that was due in July of 2022. So I put that application together, submitted it for, again, electricity savings. And the funding from the grant totals $53,494 from the state. So we kind of get buy-in on this project from multiple parties willing to contribute, which is interesting. And the estimated annual savings is $7,600 and change. So it's going to be a real interesting project, like I said, and kind of excited to be able to get the grant so that it takes up a lot of the cost from us. And again, we have to contribute 6,000, but I think that'll be money well spent to go ahead and get the heating system in the treatment plant upgraded. So the current heating system now is probably 10, say 1,500 BTU hanging propane units scattered throughout that treatment plant. Correct, Vinny? And then this will go ahead and replace those with a larger system that'll run off of geothermal, and that same system will also work to dehumidify the treatment plant in the summertime. So that part we're really excited about.
Sounds like a no-brainer to me.
Okay.
About 6 ceiling mounted units, along with the 2 very large makeup areas.
I'm assuming they take all our old equipment out.
I'm not sure. I think we may be able to get them to leave 1 or 2 propane units hanging just for secondary heating if something were to happen with this system.
Okay.
So that if there is an issue with this, we won't have real problems. So it's also interesting is Sue and I were talking about propane usage. 3 or 4 years ago, we were getting propane deliveries. We have 2, I think they're 1,000-gallon above ground tanks. And we're getting propane deliveries every 2 weeks. With the upgrades that we've done currently, and with how Vinny is currently running the heating in the treatment plant, we haven't gotten a propane delivery since June of 2022. And those tanks are still at 80%. So
Interesting.
yeah, definitely proud of that fact that what we've been able to do, we've been able to see real savings there and really see, just a change in our propane use over the last 3 or 4 years. So, and again, that's just, I think Vinny's changed the way the makeup air units are running and changing how it's heated. And again, with changing over to air source heat pumps for the offices and stuff has really made quite a difference.
Nice work.
Thank you. If I could, if someone wouldn't mind making a motion to accept that grant, that way there I can go ahead and move forward with it. That would be great.
Right, I'll make a motion to accept the grant so we can proceed.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, Peter.
All right, Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. McLam,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell.
Aye.
Excellent.
Thanks, Peter, for getting that done. That's quite a saving.
It'll be a fun little project. So again, thank you guys for the support and thank you for, again, looking at stuff a little bit differently.
All right, moving on. Any old business?
No, and just to, again, I didn't put the water line, anything to do with the water stuff on here because Beta is still working on their study. Hopefully they will have a draft report done by the end of January and we'll be able to discuss that at our next meeting on February 7th.
Fantastic. And so that's our next meeting, February 7th.
Yes.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, Peter.
Mr. Ridlack,
Aye.
Mr. McLam,
Aye.
Mr. Coleman,
Aye.
Mr. Cantwell.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
All right,
Good
thanks,
night.
everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Good night.